Well, as you can see, the university is in such great hands with the leaders we heard from this morning. And the team conceived of this idea of inviting our deans who are women to get to know them. That's one of the things I heard from people when I started getting out and meeting Spartans last year. It was that people didn't know leadership today at MSU. And so we're really working hard to bring our leaders to all of you, whether it's on the road in a lot of different places and different communications. So we thought it would be fun to spend some time this morning with some of our leaders. And we have a couple of other women deans, Mary Finn, who's about to finish up her time. So I think she's, looking at the end of her time right now. And also Lee Small, who was appointed the Dean of Nursing this year too. So she had another commitment at Henry Ford Health, but wishes she could be here. So we have with us Terry Miller, who is our interim Dean of the Library. And any research institution, is how important a library is. And we have a great library system here. And so thank you for being with us. And next to her is Kendra. Oh, now I hope I get it right. Sharavello? How did I do? I've been practicing, Kendra. I know Kendra well. We both are graduates of the same leadership program, the HERS program. That's a great investment in leaders in higher education, and I think that's what Kendra always brings to this, is mentoring and educating herself, and a lifelong learner herself. So thank you for being with us, Kendra. And I forgot to say that you also are the Dean of the Lyman Briggs College, so that's a very important thing. And then next to her, we have Dean Green, Linda Cheryl Green, who has been with us and for some time now, leading our College of Law. And she's an esteemed professor of law and comes highly recognized in a lot of accomplishments in her career. So really excited about her commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and working with us to forward our College of Law. So thank you for being here, Dean Green. And then another outstanding leader, Kelly Millenbaugh. She also dropped the interim title this year, which I'm very excited because when I met Kelly, she had the interim title, and I came from an ag school, and I thought, wow, they do things different here. We have a woman dean in the College of Ag and Natural Sciences, and I was like, don't you want to do this full time? She's like, oh no, it's not for me. I'm just helping. The classic answer that many of us give when we're called on. And I said to Teresa and others, I'm like, can we do something about that? Like, can somebody really recruit her? And so I don't know what happened after that, but she agreed to serve in this really important role as well. And so thank you for agreeing to drop the interim. Yes. So, and another, I think there's a common story here. Another real true servant leader who, when called on again, had a little, I love MSU, and if this is what is needed, I will do this. But I'm glad to see a smile on your face, Judy Whipple, because Judy has been acting as our interim Brogue College of Business dean this year, and it's been a hard road. And you, when you got that call, said, "I love MSU. If this is what we need, I will do that." So thank you, and you're still smiling. I think you're smiling more than you were last August when I first talked to you. So that's a good sign, I think. So again, it's just such a great group of people to be affiliated with. So I thought, just to warm things up a little bit, I know what it's like to be in circles like this. People often want to know, a little bit about my background, but they want to know personal stuff too, or how I think and how I'm going to approach things. So I thought, just as a teaser to warm up today, we could think about some getting to know you questions. So spring is, trying to be spring out there. Let's just start. What's your favorite season on campus? What's your favorite season? Spring, winter, summer, fall?
I'll go fall.
Fall.
Football season coming back, students coming back, the energy.
Okay, let's go down the road this way.
Definitely fall. The colors, the smell, the excitement of being back on campus.
Right. I agree, fall is wonderful, but summer's nice too. Very quiet, very beautiful, very beautiful. You can hear the grass growing. I love it.
I'll throw a spring in there. The magnolias, you're driving along Shaw Lane when all of the flowers are blooming and the students are so excited by the end of the semester and commencement, that feeling of accomplishment. I'll add that one in there.
I'm in agreement. Spring, and specifically May, because April, you don't know what you're going to
I
get.
was going to
right?
ask you,
Like,
what does
what's
this
spring?
constitute? This last week, what does this constitute in Michigan? Because I'm still new here. I'm like, I thought we got all 4 seasons in the last 5 days. So
Honestly, I mean, the ultimate of optimism at MSU is calling spring semester, because it really isn't until about May. So, yeah.
that's great. Well, yeah, the campus is gorgeous at all times for sure. So fun to hear what your favorite is. Let's work backward down the row. I'm going to start with Terry. Are you? You're all scholars in your own right. So, do you, when doing your research and personal reading, ebooks or hard copies?
Oh, the curveball for the librarian. I actually dislike reading ebooks.
I thought you were going to say I dislike reading, and I was like, wait a minute, somebody get the hook.
No, I don't like ebooks very much, so I am definitely a print reader. So our collection strategist does not like that, so don't tell her that. But yeah,
Nothing's being recorded. Don't worry.
Well, I'll be a disruptor. I'm going to answer with an answer you didn't provide as an option. I love audiobooks. I walk around all the time with one earbud in, listening to audiobooks on weekends, evenings, early mornings. That's my jam.
Okay. Oh, good. I forgot. Yes, of course.
I also love audiobooks. I read a lot of biographies, for example, and for significant biographies, I will buy the book because those are the books I collect. But yeah, Audible might be sci-fi. It might be crime thriller, or maybe How to Be a Better Leader. There are a lot of books about that too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All of the above. It just depends on the circumstance. When I'm traveling, especially if I'm driving, I want an audiobook. If I'm traveling and not driving, then I like to have the ebook because they're less cumbersome. But I also love the feel of a book in your hands and turning the pages.
Absolutely.
Probably hard copy as well. And it's always a joke in my family when I'm reading something, particularly when my kids were in high school or anything like that, if I could have a pen in my hand. Because, if my kids said, hey, would you read this, assignment for me? You can't have a pen in your hand. I just want your feedback, as opposed to the pen in my hand so a lot of books, especially if I'm reading a leadership book or something, I've got that pen and my husband says sometimes I should just highlight, if it's not a pen, a highlighter, I should highlight the sentences I don't want to reread because I do so much highlighting. So
that's cute. I think what I heard here, there's a lot of multitasking going on too, right? A lot of different ways to take in information and move quickly. And obviously you have a lot on your plates. Where on campus is your favorite spot? Where do you find inspiration? I worked for a president one time and he said, another president said to him, remember your favorite spot on campus and go there when you need inspiration, quiet thinking, rejuvenation. And I think that was really a neat spot. And I think sometimes we just gravitate to that naturally, but share where your favorite spot on campus is. Let's start with Kelly and go this way.
So, especially coming out of the College of Ag and Natural Resources, I absolutely believe I have to say the dairy store.
Okay, now we have a side question. What is your favorite flavor at the dairy store?
Oh, that's a good one. I am definitely a chocolate person all the way through. So as long as it's got chocolate, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, now all the rest of you have to say favorite place and if you're chocolate, vanilla, or a nutty person.
Certainly a favorite place is near the Wharton Center, near all the art, the outdoor art installations, also the Richard Hunt sculpture that's on campus. So.
I would say the Landscape Arboretum off of Service Road. I just love that place. They have the Zen garden, they have the pond. It's just beautiful there, nice and serene. And I will say, back in the day when at the dairy store it was 75 cents for a cup of ice cream, okay, they used to have a mint cookies and cream. That was my favorite. It hasn't been around for a long time. Notes, everybody. Taking notes. Send in the comment card. We want mint cookies and cream.
I noticed they named things after presidents, so maybe you should tell Teresa to forward that suggestion, and they might have a comeback.
So my favorite spot, my office looks out on Beale Garden. So I have one of the most beautiful offices on campus. But there's a little area right on the west side of the library, between the library and the Beale Garden, which is almost a hidden garden. There's a bench there. There are some beech trees that kind of overhang. It is glorious, and this time of year there are 2 beautiful dogwoods in bloom. It is kind of a secret place, so I'm very hesitant.
Well, we'll
to
all
share
be
it
there
with
this
all
afternoon.
and so we actually had family photos done right in that area because it's one of my favorite places on campus. So and then for ice cream, the pistachio at the dairy store. And if you're going to do a milkshake, do lemon. That's the best.
Wow.
It's the best.
What? I don't know
But then
about
I also
that.
have to put in a vote for the grilled cheese sandwiches. So that's 100%.
That's a full promotion right there, Kelly.
Perfect.
All right, Judy.
It's hard to pick. There's so many beautiful places. I guess from, one of my favorite places to always drive by, and if I'm walking, I always make sure to go by and wave at Sparty. So I love that intersection, such a nice area. And but I'll say, the Minskoff Pavilion at the Broad College is just an amazing space. The outdoor lawn, it's great to see. It was great seeing students last week in hammocks and laying out on the lawn. But there's some Adirondack chairs that'll get brought out when the weather is really spring and we feel confident. And that's just a great place to overlook the river and sit and read or...
Absolutely. Sparty statue is so iconic, and it, no surprise, after February 13th, that became a place of gathering for our campus. And people are wanting to know, how's everybody doing? How are you doing as leaders? How's your faculty doing? How are your students doing? What do you see changing going forward? And just whoever wants to share a thought or two about sharing that experience.
I guess one thing I would say, it was just how amazing the community support was so, whether it was the East Lansing and surrounding communities, the way it brought people together in the building. We had U of M send a banner that we have in our student engagement center that students and faculty and staff and the dean signed. Just the outpouring of support really helped, I think, all of us realize a sense of community. And we started I would say the Sunday before classes resumed, we had it called Spartan Sunday, and it was more people along the river than a football game. We have a corgi, so they had a corgi club meet up to, cuddle with corgis. And so we had a bunch of 50 corgis running around Sparty statue, and just amazing to see the support. And I think that really, I just can't express enough to people how much that meant to all of us, including students, to really feel like we were a community. And so I think, it's been a challenge, but I think students have recognized the sense of support and community that we all have has been really gratifying.
I guess I would also add, I do want to give a shout out to Teresa Woodruff and how she led the university during this very difficult time, bringing people together, making sure people were updated, aware of what was happening. It's been challenging for some individuals, without a doubt, challenging for all of us. We've gone through a lot as a university for the last 5 or 6 years. But I will echo what Judy said, which was the outpouring and the coming together. People set aside their frustrations with issues, their maybe dissatisfaction around things, and said, I need to be here and be present because we need each other. And that was the best thing, even though it was an incredibly tragic event. It was the absolute best thing that happened as a result of it, was pulling the community back together.
I would add, I echo what my colleagues have said, but I would also add that it brought to us a new awareness of the different trauma experiences that our students and our faculty and staff have had in their lives, and that we don't necessarily provide the resources for people to heal from those prior experiences. And so, as a matter of thinking about equity, we're not all similarly situated in our ability to thrive or seek to thrive after trauma. So that's one area of awareness. I'll say something really positive. In the very next day after the shooting, I heard from the parents of two of my students, one who is actually head of a counseling and psychological services at another university, offering to come in and to help our faculty, our staff, or just to counsel the leadership team on how we might effectively be more effective in leading with a deeper understanding of how trauma affects people differently. And a second parent also with a deep experience in this field of violence and trauma, offering to support our faculty and our students. And it was just, there were a number of, I'm sure we all had a number of beautiful experiences that, really are a testament to the generosity of people and the resilience of the human spirit. So that was something that really did touch me.
Yeah. I'll also add, so for those of you who don't know, the Lyman Briggs College is one of MSU's 3 residential colleges. So what that means is we have the largest dorm on campus. There's 2 dorm towers, and it's connected by all the faculty offices, the dean's offices, our classrooms, our laboratories. We have a cafeteria. So we are a group of 2,000 people on campus who are all very tightly connected and interwoven, and we live and work together. And so what that means is our experience, right? Like when our students were in lockdown, they were in the building, right? Some of our faculty were there with them in lockdown, right? So that's a real different experience. And again, we all came together as a community. We had events all over during the weekend. Our own development director ran a yoga class underneath the dorms in the lounge, right? It was a coming together for all of us, but I'll be honest, it's still there. It's still a struggle. We all process at different rates and in different ways, and it's not something that just goes away, right? And so we're getting there, but we are with our students every day in this residential college, and so we still feel it.
And for us, this is something that we, in the libraries, we've been told, libraries are places where, security-wise, they're worried that this kind of thing is going to happen. So this is something we've been preparing for years in terms of trying to increase security and things like that. We know at night and on the weekends, we are filled with students. It is a busy place, and the students want to be there. So it's we are happy for a lot of the security things, new security measures that are in place. That's going to really help people. But at the same time, we're a public library. It's so important that the community can access our resources, and that we have researchers from all over the state and the country that come in. And we have to find a balance between the security for our students and our openness for the community and for researchers everywhere. So balancing those two things are really important to us. But it's also given us the opportunity to even really increase programming in some areas that we love. Our therapy dogs, which we do occasionally, have become an almost every week event. For a while it was a daily event. And having students come in the library and just sit with a dog was such a healing process in the beginning. It was so important for them to get back into our spaces and feel comfortable, especially students who live off campus and only come in for classes. It was really important for them to get back in this space. So we've had other programming around, just like come in and do a craft and hang out with your fellow students. And that's been a really important part of the healing process as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we have become more aware of how trauma or violence that might appear not to be connected actually does reverberate through the consequences reverberate, whether it's fear, anger, or vulnerability. But I also think we can also think about how we use the resources of our university to address the trauma that exists in many people's lives outside on a daily basis, the violence across our country, and we never have that conversation about trauma in that connection. And so I think maybe our heightened awareness as a result of our experiences might lead us to have a deeper desire to understand how trauma is affecting our nation as a result of the violence that we experience.
Well, certainly we heard from so many people, our alumni, people cared about us. I heard many stories about people in other parts of the country just sobbing, watching the television and the MSU they know and love to see us on the news in that way, but inspiration from people coming together. And I just want to thank everybody who gave to the Spartan Strong Fund. That was an overwhelming response. And right away, I had a lot of interviews about that fund, and people were curious. And I just knew right away that morning. I know Sarah and I were texting early Tuesday morning about setting up a fund. We just knew Spartans were going to want to help. And so we put a fund together that was as broad as possible. We didn't know what that looked like. We didn't know exactly the scope and scale of things, but we just knew that people would want to give. And so thank you if you gave to that fund. We've raised over $1 million for it. We've closed that fund now because now we have the task of disseminating those funds. And so wrote it really broadly. Some people cared about counseling, and some people wanted us to recognize first responders, and some people wanted the students who were most directly impacted to have support. And the university had to work through all of those things logistically. What I've learned is it's much easier to raise the money than to spend the money in a way that doesn't that helps people and that has the greatest impact. So there's been the coming together of leadership was remarkable. And so right away we had daily meetings with the core team and have formed a financial group to talk about all the financial implications, whether it's security measures and philosophical topics as well. And part of that is how do we deploy these funds now? We also have an SOS fund that was in existence prior to this that a lot of people chose to give to, which is to help students who have unexpected financial hardship. They can apply directly for that fund. And so some people chose to give to that. And we had several $100,000 given to that fund. And that continues and was in existence before February 13th. So just want to say thank you and to assure you that funding was really, really impactful to all the different things that were thrust upon our campus. So thank you for your support around that. That's sort of thinking about right now what's just happened. If we can take our lens up and think about your college or your unit, and if you could give us a highlight around, what specific goals you have for your colleges or units, and how philanthropy might play a part in advancing those things. So. Kendra's smiling. I've got your eye. So we're going to start with you, Kendra.
Sure. So the Lyman Briggs College is thinking big in the terms of philanthropy right now. Our facilities can't keep track with our growth. We are 2,000 strong, as I mentioned. We're the 8th largest college by majors on campus. And we welcomed our largest ever class this fall of 658. And so the reality is that we are looking toward the future, maybe a 10-year goal of an annex or some other improvement in facilities so that we can support the growth and really give that Briggs experience to all of the students who want it.
Right. Linda, do you want to?
Sure.
We'll go this way.
Yes, the College of Law, although it has been MSU College of Law for 2 decades, only in the last 2 years has the College of Law been fully a part of Michigan State University. And so what comes with that is a deeper thinking about what our purpose should be as a part of this great research land-grant university. And so we are looking to be the preeminent law school in Michigan, preparing diverse lawyers to serve diverse communities in Michigan. And that is everything from urban, suburban, tribal nations, rural, across the board. We have many places that are legally legal deserts where people don't have access to legal services, or they are near the existence of legal services, but they're not affordable. So that relates to a second objective, which is to reduce the debt that our students have so that they can make choices about the people they serve without the burden of debt, to make public service, which is extremely important, an option, to make opening small law firms an option. So reducing debt, and then to diversify the legal profession in Michigan and beyond. And for that, we're going to be looking to make connections with high schools, middle schools, community organizations, et cetera, involved with young people so that people can see that pathway of opportunity to serve the people in Michigan and beyond. It's really making equal justice under law a reality in the lives of as many people as possible in this state and in this nation.
Great.
So I'm going to tell a little bit of a story, and you may have to cut me off, so don't hesitate. Where I want to start with was when I actually interviewed for the dean's position. I was asked to state, what's your goal? And my goal is world domination. And I said that a little tongue-in-cheek, but I really kind of meant it at the same time, because I think we have the capacity to really lead in this space, not just nationally, but across the globe. There are some major pressing things that we are dealing with, not unique to MSU, with regard to infrastructure issues. And I'll talk about a couple of projects that we're working on. But many of you probably are also aware that MSU has gone really from a state-supported school to a state-assisted school. So where the general fund budget used to bring in about 75% of our base funding for the university, we're at 23% at this time. And somebody has to make those dollars up. Those dollars now that we have to make up are essentially on the shoulders of our students for the most part, raising tuition costs. But we also have to be more creative with the way in which we think about funding. So we're thinking about ways in which we can engage in corporate spaces in particular. In the College of Ag and Natural Resources, we have not done a lot in those spaces, but we acknowledge that if we're going to advance our infrastructure needs, we need to be able to connect with those individuals who have the greatest ability to be able to support some of those projects. So I want to just talk about two quick, and then I'll wrap things up. Many of you are probably aware that we, as a college, include Ag Bio Research, which is our experiment station, and MSU Extension. And for those three entities, including the college, we're working on two big projects. One is the renovation of the plant science greenhouses. For any of you who drive by in the evening, those are the ones that are lit up in pink lights. Most of those were built in the 50s and 60s. When Teresa was the provost, she visited with our college first, and we took her into the greenhouses in January. She was inside, and it literally snowed on her inside the greenhouses. And so we're losing some of the best faculty because our infrastructure can't keep pace. Back in May of 2021, we had a massive fire out at our dairy farm. That was a huge eye-opener for us, and it's something that keeps me up every single night because it was an electrical fire for a farm that was built in the 50s. So we were able to get about $53 million from the state of Michigan for both of those projects. It's about half of what we need to ensure that we can move things forward to the state-of-the-art entities that we really need to ensure our students are getting the best education, our staff and faculty are able to do the work that they need to do. So those are some of the things that we're working on: infrastructure, faculty lines, student support.
So we've been very fortunate in the Broad College that we were able to have a substantial investment in our physical infrastructure with the opening of the Minskoff Pavilion in fall of 2019. It was the first building on campus to be fully funded by private donation. And so it really helped us to establish the physical space, particularly, to be able to have it. If you haven't had a chance to see the Minskoff Pavilion, I really encourage you to go in that. It's just an amazing, amazing space. And it really elevated the feeling and the stature and just the pride around the building where students can really, and I think we really see that our physical infrastructure now matches our program excellence. And so that's been really, really wonderful. And so now our focus is on, we've got the physical infrastructure, now we need more of the human infrastructure. So support to retain and attract top faculty and staff to the college, support for our students, whether that's scholarship, but also extracurricular activities. We've done some benchmarking. As an example, we're one of the lowest in the Big Ten in terms of our student participation in education abroad. And so how do we think about supporting those student activities? We've recently gone to direct admit for freshmen, which has been great for us. But how do we think about attracting an exceptional but also diverse applicant pool as freshmen direct admit? And then also building our brand and our reputation.
Great. Thank you. We'll come.
So for us in the libraries, we are on the verge of our now $14.6 million project to renovate the third floor of our main stacks for purpose-built space for our special collections. And the collection's valued now at over $150 million. It is currently mostly located in the basement, as it's been there for quite some time before I was born, certainly. And as many of you know, the library is right next to a river. So putting a river and your most valuable collections in the basement by the river is probably not a good idea long term. So we are working on that. Actually, I have a meeting at 11 for the first round of approvals for that to go to the Board of Trustees. I'm very excited that we're moving. The challenge with that project has been that when it went in feasibility in 2019, the price of it was $7 to $9 million, and COVID pricing has meant that it's now up to 14 point. COVID pricing and infrastructure has meant that the price has gone way up because we have to address some longstanding. The east wing of the library is a 1967 vintage, and the air handlers are also 1967. So we need to get those replaced and do a lot of upgrading. What's really amazing about it is that our Gutenberg Bible and our fourth folio and our world-class largest publicly accessible comic book collection, I don't care what the Library of Congress says, will be in amazing location, amazing facilities for our staff to work in and process the collections that we're getting from all of you. So I'm super excited about moving forward on that.
Great. Kendra, anything?
I started.
Yeah, but anything more? No, nothing more to add then. Okay, I thought I caught your eye. Okay. So woven into what you talked about was support for faculty. You all have come through in your career great leaders, and whether it was infrastructure support or other kind of support. Tell us a little bit about your leadership journey and how did you choose to be a career in the academy and in particular public institution? We've had some figures shared there, and just a little bit about your own leadership journey. So who wants to start? I'll give you.
Well, I have, I think, have to look to my mother and my father. And we had leaders in my family on my mother's side. My grandfather was a pioneering surgeon and also a civil rights leader in the NAACP in New Orleans and then later in Richmond, California. So I did experience his leadership in the medical field and also in civil rights. So that had some important effect on me. I was really fortunate early on in my career to have the opportunity to work at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which is the law firm that Thurgood Marshall headed when he brought all the cases to overturn Plessy versus Ferguson. And so the people who are my role models and some of my early mentors are people who, for example, walked James Meredith into the University of Mississippi, people of great courage and principle. So I had some of those. And so I think that aiming big or being able to think about things that, maybe don't seem possible is a part of my DNA. So I've been, really blessed to have some fantastic role models and mentors.
Kelly.
So I think one of the things I want to start with is, so I am the kid that was afraid to call Pizza Hut when I had to make an order in case I messed it up and they would know who I was. So I never thought I would be in any type of a leadership position. That's not what I thought I would do. And even when I went to undergrad and graduate school, I am a wildlife biologist by training. I picked that because I didn't have to deal with people. I later found out that you actually do a lot of work working with people when you're working in wildlife, but I also realized that I wasn't a very good wildlife biologist, and so I switched my career after I went through the promotion and tenure process and started studying a different kind of wildlife, and that's our students. And I wanted to know more about why are they choosing particular disciplines? Why are they leaving? That led me into work with curriculum and other things that were really about how do we ensure the opportunities we provide to our students, they're the best that we possibly can do. And just through, I think, a series of mentors who really pushed me to be outside of my comfort zone, I think leadership kind of found me. It's not where I thought I would ever go. I actually spent 3 years in Lyman Briggs College as their associate dean, and then have been about 10 years now in the leadership of the College of Ag and Natural Resources. So it's a very circuitous path, but one that I'm grateful for every single day, and grateful for the people who believed in me, who got me in those very uncomfortable spaces and let me grow and evolve to where I am today.
How many other people would identify with being a reluctant leader? I think a lot of women find that that's a very common story, and I will attest to the wildlife of our students. I live across from Harper's. I'm studying it every day since I've been here, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, scratching my head. So, Judy, how about you?
So I think, similar to Kelly, I decided to go into academia in part. I actually wanted to stay in industry, and I thought getting a PhD would help me to position myself for further advancement, and had a chance in my first year in the PhD program to do some teaching and to be a TA for a faculty member, and I just loved it. And I also really loved the research. And so both the research piece and the teaching piece were really what inspired me to continue in the academic career. And you mentioned a public university versus, a private. I grew up in this area. I'd like to say I grew up in the shadows of MSU. And so my goal after getting my PhD here was to come back on faculty. And sort of a rule, you don't get hired by your university until you go out and prove yourself. And so that was just always my goal. I never really thought about public or private. I just thought about MSU and wanting to come back. And I actually came back in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So I'm one of, it's pretty uncommon. I mean, Kelly's been in 2 colleges. It's pretty uncommon to be a faculty member in multiple colleges in a university. And so I think one of the things that I really appreciated having the chance to be in the College of Ag and Natural Resources as a faculty before going to the College of Business was really seeing the embodiment of, we're not just a public university, but we're a land-grant university. And the philosophy that comes from that of, we are here to offer, education to the masses. We are here to be inclusive. We are here to offer accessibility to individuals that would not have had the chance at an education without that land-grant moral act. And so it really that's been a part of my inspiration as a leader, is to really think about how do we serve our community, how do we serve our state. Luana would sometimes talk about World Grant, how do we service, the globe and, make people's lives better. And so that's been part of my sort of inspiration and leadership. And so, again, I've been a reluctant leader as well. But, I think just really thinking about how can I help spread that message and how can I help others in reaching their goals and aspirations.
All right. Thanks, Judy. Terry, how about you?
I feel like I'm definitely an accidental leader, but it's really interesting. I was when I first became interim dean when there was an event, and the person who first saw here at MSU, I guess my leadership abilities and encouraged me to be a leader. She had been an interim then library director in the '90s, and we were riding up in the elevator together, and it was an interesting moment. I hadn't seen her in a number of years, but she was like, "Yep, here you are," and I was here too, and so it was great to think about that she had identified something in me that I hadn't really considered. That she asked me to be the lead of a department of all men who were all about 25 years older than me, and that was my first leadership position here at MSU, and so that was. That was quite a moment for me, and she was a great mentor. So I think about the great mentors that I've had over the course of my career here at MSU, but certainly not intentional. I had intended when my academic background is in Russian history. I was going to be a PhD professor of Russian history, and then this thing called the internet came out, and it was really super cool. And I was like, I could go to Moscow and study 19th century Russian history, or I could go to library school and study the internet, and that's where I made my switch. But so I thought I was getting out almost of academia, that I was going to go into industry and do the internet thing. And then when I got out of library school, everyone said, "Wait, you know Russian? So you really need to be in an academic library." So my first job was at the University of Illinois in a very specific Department of Defense-funded reference. Like I handled a lot of very obscure questions about Russia and Eastern Europe. But so that
Still
is
a lot of questions about
yes, and that
see
was
Terry at the break.
yeah. They were our friends then, and so also my Ukrainian grandparents right now are like, wow, that's quite a turn of events for you in your career. So anyway, so very accidental pathways toward leadership, and just feeling encouraged by women that have worked in my position before me, bringing me along.
Thanks. Kendra,
Isn't
can
it
you
so
share?
fun to hear people's stories and to see the differences and the similarities? The question of how did you end up in academia? I had no plan for academia either. I didn't have role models in my family for that either, and I planned to be I actually was in the Fisheries and Wildlife Department too, and I thought, I'm going to work for the Department of Natural Resources at some point, right? And in hindsight now, years and years later, looking back, I actually think that the start of me on a path toward academia happened in undergrad when I became an undergraduate learning assistant for my statistics course, because I loved helping others understand statistics. But at the time, that I didn't think anything much about it. And then in graduate school, like Judy, I got to teach, and then I was able to help my advisor develop a brand new course that was based on environmental case studies. And I tell you, from that moment on, I was hooked. I loved being part of watching and helping other people learn and seeing the doors open and the minds open to new knowledge. And so actually my first faculty position was 100% teaching at a regional Purdue campus. And my favorite class that I got to teach there was introductory biology for elementary education majors. They are a wonderful group of people doing such important work, and it was just so fun. But again, not accidental that I ended up in academia. There were choices along the way, but certainly it wasn't a planned thing from a young age. And it's interesting why a public institution. I think it's partly because I have a very strong sense of justice, and I'm very I think it's really important for our country, for our society, that we have education for all. We're still at a place where 30-something% of our children end up going to college in the U.S. That's a low number, right? And for us to be able to solve the Earth's problems that we're facing, we need an educated and critically thinking society. And so I think that's probably why I started out at that branch campus of Purdue, and then I came back here after having done my PhD here. and why I really think it's important that we do provide an education for so many who might not be able to go to private.
Thank you.
I would, if I could add that, why public education is really the foundation of this country, and it's our future is only going to be as strong. And I have that perspective in part because I did start my schooling in segregated schools in the South, that where black schools receive different resources. And then I've also seen public education, not perfect, but from California, which has an enormous investment in public education. And so it's really at the foundation of our society and its prosperity. So it's a great thing to be able to advocate for more support for public education.
To be making a difference. And so speaking of making a difference, you work with your faculty, and if you can, Teresa highlighted some of the discrepancy in funding and resources for women in science and research and a lot of different aspects. If you can talk a little bit about your faculty and what maybe a story or so about women who serve with you in leadership roles or research things that are happening in that space with the faculty that you work with. And you talked about mentorship and people tapping you on the shoulder, providing you inspiration, and if we can wrap all that together around how you're leading in your colleges and respective units with other women, and what's the culture and opportunity out there for them. Who wants to start? Yeah, let's start with Terry.
So we have obviously in the libraries we have lots of wonderful, amazing women. But one of our recent hires is a specialist in media preservation, and I feel like sitting in WKR studios, we should acknowledge the importance of media preservation. She has this incredible depth of knowledge of a really complex area, and you think about all of it, her job is to basically take all of these old versions of media that we have things on, everything from film to CDs to laser discs we have all of these old things, and figure out these various formats are in various stages of basically falling apart. Yes, and she figures out how to digitize them, how to preserve them, and has this amazing depth of knowledge, but needs a ton of resources. It's expensive to do media preservation. It's expensive to store media preservations properly. And she's like, well, you could do it one way or you could do it the right way. And so my job is both to encourage her on a technical and give her the resources around her technical ability to do that, but also she can clearly lead us in places we've never been. Like, we've got the stuff. We have it in the nooks and crannies all over campus. But she was the first one that approached me and said, we have 300 reels of WKR film from the 1950s that's just sitting there that needs to be preserved. And I was like, we should do something about that. So yeah, but she's been with us about 3 years. She's amazing, and I just need to do whatever I can to provide her with the resources to take us. And I think she thinks so much about her very specific field, and thinking, oh, she's a leader. You can already tell she's going to take us in media preservation, not just here, but in the Big Ten and further from that. So I'm excited for her.
So the configuration that you talked about earlier when you were managing 25 men, I assume that's...
No, 5 men that were all 25 years older than
5
me.
men. I was like, wow, that was a big department that she was managing. But is it an even split now, or is it...
Well, the department that I was in, actually all of those men are now retired. Yeah, all of them are retired now, so I had to count there. But in terms of it in the libraries with leadership, it's more than even. It's I would say the leadership in the library is like 80% women now. So yeah.
Well, we have some fantastic women who are leaders in their field. For example, Professor Winona Single directs our Indigenous Law and Policy Center. She teaches courses in the field of American Indian law. She was a co-reporter on the first restatement on the law of the American Indian. She is a former deputy legal counsel to Governor Whitmer. We also have 2 researchers who focus on exonerations and who apply empirical methodology to also predict circumstances that might lead to false convictions. We have some new faculty, very, very interesting. One focusing on a housing justice clinic where our students have the opportunity to practice law to protect people who are on the brink of eviction. We also have an innovative new professor. The first professor was Nicole Godfrey, Ann Choike, who has developed an equitable entrepreneurship clinic to provide intellectual property and business development services to people who are underserved, people who don't have access to counsel. So some really, these are just, I haven't named all of them, but just some examples of women doing outstanding work, and we support them by supporting their research and by supporting their opportunities to continue to lead in their field.
So important to help advance their careers and having opportunities to fund their research or their creativity pursuits so that they
we need endowed chairs and other opportunities to retain them, because of course the more successful they are, the more other institutions, including some very close to us, would actually like to recruit them to teach. So we've been so we really need to be competitive with the superstars we have.
Absolutely.
Within the College of Ag and Natural Resources, if you would look at the student population, we are now about 56% women in the student population. But if you look at the faculty, and especially if you look at the leadership, you will not see that view. We are still very much a white male-dominated space. And one of the things that we've been very purposely working on in a couple of different areas is ensuring salary equity. I can remember several years ago, because when I was the senior associate dean for the college and overseeing academic and student affairs, I actually managed the general fund budget for the college. And so I would arm wrestle with the director of extension, the director of ag bio over things. And so we would get letters of offer that would come forward. And we had 2 faculty positions in the same department. They were hiring individuals in very similar positions. One was a male, one was a female. When the letters came forward, the individuals, for the most part, you looked at them, they had equivalent postdoc experience, mostly equivalent publication. The woman's packet came in and her salary was $40,000 less, and her startup package was $100,000 less. And I remember I said, I'm confused here. Why is there such a difference? And the response was, well, she wasn't as good of a negotiator. And I thought, this is nuts. This is not how we should be doing this. And so one of the things that we have very purposely done in the college is every candidate that interviews for a position, when they get to the time of negotiating, we now give them a letter that says, these are the things that we are expecting you will negotiate on. So that we're trying to level that playing field, because we do know that women are not necessarily the best negotiators. The other part, though, is making sure that those people who are in the decision-making spaces are looking carefully at, are we being equitable? Are we ensuring that we're getting our individuals off to the best start possible? If we would have brought that woman in at the salary that was so much below the male, we would have never, over time, ever been able to make her equivalent because of how the raise process works, et cetera. So we want to ensure we're getting people off on the right start as soon as possible so that they have the ability to have the greatest earning potential out there. But it takes a lot of awareness, and it takes a lot of making sure that we professionally and diplomatically challenge each other and the way in which we think about these types of issues. So that's just one example of the things that we're trying to make some adjustments with in our college, because I think historically that's been ignored.
I'm thinking about at the HERS Institute when I was there years ago, they said to all of us women leaders, they said, if not you, then who's going to change this? Who's going to speak up? Who's going to raise their hand and say, why is this that way? And it's an important topic. My research focuses on the cumulative impact of negotiation on a woman's career, in particular higher education and presidents. So it's real, definitely. So Kendra, you look ready to answer.
Yeah, well, and I was also going to say, and of course, that if they had come in 40,000 less, we would have lost them to an institution down the road or somewhere else. So we also, like, that's a part of the problem, right? Yeah. Well, I want to speak a little bit about an example in my college of amazing women doing amazing work from a teaching perspective. We know that the Lyman-Briggs model works. With our undergraduate students, we retain 2 times the women in STEM as the national average. So we know that the model that we have, this very much cohort-based experience of residential college, works. And I think part of why that works is because we center teaching and the student experience in our college. And so an example of a person doing that and the impact that they're having is Dr. Vashti Sautel. So she's one of our physicists. And she is an amazing human. She's an amazing instructor. She's an amazing researcher. And so what has happened over the years since she started at Lyman-Briggs is first, we had identified that there was an issue with our physics classes in that our students, who are mostly biology majors, didn't feel like physics was relevant. They didn't really much care for physics, and they were trying to just get through it as quickly as possible. And so the first thing they did was they redesigned the physics course. Vashti helped lead this process. They redesigned it both in content and in the way that it's taught. And so they made all the topics to be more relevant, to be biological based, and to be more relevant to people's lives. And then they changed the entire way the course was taught. Is now taught as what's called a studio course. So it used to be that there was a lecture and then there was a lab. Now it's blended together. They built a whole new classroom. I shouldn't say whole new. Okay, so we're in this very old dorm on campus. There's a whole wing of rooms in the basement that are not, they were never meant to be classrooms, but we turned them into this amazing studio classroom where now you go into a physics class and you're doing experiments intermixed with the lecture and the students running discussions and talking about the problems and having them be real world problems that they care about. And so it's a really neat experience and our students love it. And then what happened then is that became a model for the rest of the university. And when our university was able to open up the STEM teaching and learning building, which if you haven't been into that yet, it's amazing. They designed the physics labs, the physics classrooms in that building using ours as a model. And so Vashti went over and she consulted with them to help them to design those classrooms. And, you know, she is, as I said, she's an amazing instructor, amazing educator. She's also an amazing researcher. Her research is trying to understand what it is we can do to support students who transfer from 2-year universities to 4-year universities. And she's built a network of scholars and educators all across Michigan with 2-year colleges, and she's really trying to understand how can we improve that experience. And so for all of those reasons, she last year was one of the Michigan Professor of the Year awardees, which is given out by the Michigan Association of Universities. And so that was such a great experience to be able to go downtown and to be able to spend that day with her while she was recognized for all of her work. So that's just one example of, I think, how you can see that our faculty are just making a difference in so many people's lives, in their students' lives, and through their research, through everything that they do.
Thank you. Judy, what about Broad?
Kim, can I just interrupt? Sorry, before, because I'm sure everybody is wondering what the end of the story was with that faculty member I shared. She did get the same salary and the same startup as her male colleague, and she's knocking it out of the park.
Nice. Great. Thank you for closing that.
Absolutely. So I think, similar to what Kelly said, we are not where I would like to see us college-wide in terms of the number of female faculty, and we do have some tremendous and amazing women and some tremendous leaders in the college. One of the I'm thinking of Quinetta Robeson, who's one of our faculty members, she's jointly appointed between our college and the Department of Management and the Department of Psychology. She's one of our John Hanna professors. And she's doing a lot of work on diversity on corporate boards and looking at the impacts on corporate performance from a variety, not just financial, but retention, culture, some other aspects. And I think one of the things that she would say this much more eloquently, but if I sort of summarize some of the highlights of the research is really the board really needing to understand why they want diversity, what their outcomes and their goals are, and then also making sure that they're matching the right skill set. So this idea that just putting somebody on a board to check a box on diversity is really not helping with that those performance metrics, and really being much more intentional about what the skill sets are, how you want them to contribute, and then putting them to work in those areas. And so that's been really interesting to start to think about how we can kind of bring some of that research into the college. One of the challenges that we have is in many of the disciplines in the college is convincing students to go into academia. The salaries are very attractive to stay in industry. You kind of take a 4 or 5, 6 year vow of poverty to get a PhD. And so, that's a challenge for us to attract people, anyone, but we're competing for those diverse candidates with our recruiters to get them to think about graduate education. And so there's a lot that I've done and others have done to talk with students about graduate education, about a career in academia. I've been an advisor on our MBA Women's Association. We've done some discussions in terms of how to get women interested in this as a career opportunity, because we are struggling to find diverse candidates to be on faculty positions. And then the other thing that we've worked on, and you talked about Lyman Briggs and it being a residential college. We started a few years ago a residential business community. So it was freshmen, now it's freshman and sophomore, and they live together in the same dorm. Our director, Sherry Henry, has done an amazing job in really creating now a 2-year program now that students live on campus for 2 years. And it's really a way for incoming freshmen to get and build a network and a community right away. And one of the things that we find that research is very clear on, first generation students, female students, and students from underrepresented populations, if they don't feel a sense of community in that first or second semester, we lose them. And so building this sense of community, building this opportunity for people to connect, I think very important, building a sense of where someone can say, if I can see somebody else doing it that I can relate to, I can do it. And so we're really trying to build that culture in as well for our students to really be able to see who are role models that I can look up to and where were their paths. And if they could do it, I could do it.
Thank you. Well, before we open it up to a few questions, last question for all of you. And I'm going to start with Terry because I know she has a meeting she has to dash to. But what do you hope for MSU in this next decade?
We're getting to, I'm thinking about MSU and more importantly, the library's 2030. So what do I hope for? I hope that we continue to build community. I mean, that is so important in the libraries, is that we find ways to build community, not just with our MSU students, but with our community at large around us, both locally and regionally in Michigan, and to build partnerships that we continue. I think my last year here on the deans, with the deans, it's been an amazing experience in collaboration and being able to meet all of these wonderful women and the other deans that have been just really supportive and continuing to grow that collaborative process. I think in the past MSU we've all felt a little siloed in a lot of ways, and I think the deans are being really intentional about being collaborative and working together, and that is a lovely thing.
Great.
Me next?
Yes.
I guess for me, I would think what I hope in the next 10 years is that we are able to achieve some stability. I think, it's been a few years now of a lot of change and transition, and both in terms of leadership, but then with COVID and now with the violence. I mean, there's just been a lot of uncertainty and change. And of course, that's never going to go away completely, but I hope that over the course of maybe the next 5 years, actually, we might come to a new sort of sense of who we are and who's leading us so that we can really shine. I think we have so much to offer and so much good going on and so many positive things happening. But it's hard to let all of that shine and for people to see it all when there's so much else going on, so much noise. So that's sort of my hope for the future.
My hope is that we can build on the success we've had in the past year in bringing in the most diverse class to our law school in a quarter of a century. We want to make sure that we are providing that education for a diverse lawyer population to meet the needs of the state. And so that will be when we can know that we have that flow of talent and that we have in place the kind of programs that will actually create that pathway of opportunity to the legal profession, which in turn will make equal justice under law a part of the lives of more people in this state and beyond. So we think the best is yet to come, not only for Michigan State, but also for Michigan State College of Law.
So Michigan State University, in my opinion, is the state of Michigan's university. And that is so critical to what we do, how we think about our land grant mission, et cetera. I want to echo the things that Kendra said in terms of we have amazing, amazing things happening on this campus. We have to do a better job helping share those stories and share the impacts of those stories. So I'm going to end where I started, which is what I hope for MSU, world domination.
Love it.
So I'll tell a little story first as I kind of get to my answer, and that's when I think about my journey at MSU. And I mentioned I started in the PhD program here. I took a class from Don Bowersock. So my background is supply chain management, and if you're familiar with that, Don is really one of the founding fathers of the field, supply chain, logistics, transportation, and really was a key motivator for helping build what is now our number one program in supply chain management and logistics. And Don, I was actually in a different major, and I took a class from Don, and he said halfway through the class, you need to switch majors and you need to come and work for me. And so at the end of the semester, I went and met with him. I said, well, I've been thinking about switching. And he said, give me a minute, I'll be right back. He came back, he said, all right, you have an assistantship, you're on my team. And, you pick up your paperwork. And Don just had this ability to see things in people that they didn't see in themselves. And it was really transformational to get to work for him. And so I think that's what I love about MSU is I think there's a lot of this pay it forward mentality in the faculty and the staff and the leadership. And so, when I had a chance to come back to the Bro College and be on faculty, Don had retired a few years earlier and, talked with me about how proud he was that I joined the faculty. I'll get a little emotional. And then to be able to be given an endowed professorship in his name, along with Rob Thal, that was just a transformational experience for me. And I see how we do that in so many ways across campus for so many students, for our faculty, our staff, to be able to transform people while they're here. It's why you're coming back, right? It's why you're still involved. There were moments that mattered to you while you were on campus that created a lifelong love for Michigan State. And so in addition to world domination, I want to hope and see us continue to be able to transform lives in what we do every day on campus, whether it's through amazing research that Teresa talked about. I've seen her present over, as a provost, as an interim president. She's so motivational, but I've never had a chance to have her talk about her research. And, again, just transformational. So many things are going on campus. And I think we have often had the Spartan mentality of, well, we're the best kept secret, but we don't want to be a secret. We want to be letting everybody know the amazing things that are going on here and the amazing ways that we are changing the world.
That's great. I heard community, I heard stability, I heard transformation, diversity, equity, inclusion, and world domination. And so I think your university is in good hands with leaders who have this mindset and are working hard every day to achieve those things on behalf of all of you and our students and our whole community. So with that, if we have time for a question or two, if there are any from the audience. I'm going to rely on some help over here. Okay. Yes. Oh, we'll pass the mic. If you have the microphone, then maybe that will help. Okay.
Tag, you're it. Thank you for your panel discussion. It was really great. Having worked in industry, the issue of pay equity has always been part of my position. But I've heard the same thing in industry. Women don't negotiate, so they start at a lower salary because why would we pay people more than they ask for? So is there a push or a way that you can, not me, educate women or teach them? And it's just a skill set, right? And it's typically not a skill set that women learn, and I don't know why, but if you could just address that. Thanks.
I would just echo what Kelly said. We're taking institutional responsibility for not perpetuating something that may be a myth or maybe self-fulfilling prophecy, but taking responsibility with now more than ever, with every pay decision, asking the question, how does this affect equity? And that's there's, of course, many ingredients that might be involved in that determination, but taking an institutional position that we won't institutionalize whatever societal differences people say exist in propensity to negotiate. So I think I certainly, I can just say in my college that we're never, the question of equity is really always in the spotlight. We can't always immediately address, but it starts by acknowledging that it's an important component of these decisions.
I think one of the things that I'm trying to also do using the platform that I have is to, when I'm working with women in particular, is to have those conversations. I know it's not the same thing that you were asking about, but I'll give an example. We're working on a reappointment of one of our leaders who's a woman, and I sat down with her to talk through, okay, what's it going to take to get you in here? And I literally told her, I said, you need to ask for this, to try to help her understand that there is a space that she can work inside of. And I said, I'll be disappointed if this doesn't show up in your ask. And it was her number one ask. So it's little incremental steps, I think, that at least I can individually take, but I can also work with the male leaders that we have on things like, we're handing out this guide. These are the questions that people have the right to ask you, and you should also be aware of creating the equity that we need across essentially the sexes as well.
I know Terry has to leave, so please, thank you for being here with us. Anything else to add on the salary and negotiation question?
I would just add that, two things. We have an ethics institute that's university-wide, and in the Borough College we have a Center for Ethical and Socially Responsible Leadership. And one of the key pieces of the Ethics Institute is it's not just a a teaching and research component, but we want it to be transformational in terms of how we build, to Linda's comment, ethics and integrity across the university in all of our processes. And so, certainly I hope that we continue to do some of the programs that Linda and Kelly are talking about and make them broader across the institution. I think also it's working with young women. So, we have this great negotiation class. We have some other programming for women in the college. And, really the other piece is also understanding that research has shown that it's not just the pay gap, but that if there's a job that has 10 items on it or 10 requirements, women will not apply unless they think they're excellent in all 10. And, men will apply if they think they're good at one or two, right? And so kind of helping women to sort of say, hey, I can take this leap and I can, maybe I don't have every requirement, but how can I still think about building my career in there or taking that chance, taking that risk? And, I could say for myself, I'm not a big risk taker. And so having had people who encouraged me along the way to jump in and to take that risk and to do things has been, I think that's the other piece that we need to build into that culture and into that mindset for students to say, yeah, I don't have everything perfectly matched up on this, but I'm going to still put my name in.
I think it's a mindset shift too, and saying, oh, well, this is all that this person asked for, so that's all we're going to give them. You're pointing out, saying, coaching people beforehand. And I know there are two offer letters that came across my desk since I started here, and I said, we need to pay these people more because they didn't ask for it, and I know what the comps are. And that's where hers advice was, if not you, then who? They don't know what the comps are, but eventually they will find out and feel undervalued. So we need to speak up as leaders. We need to coach people. And that was always a taboo thing to do before. It was like us versus them. And it's like, no, this is about us together. And so
I would say we have all people have identified us and pointed out our potential as leaders. I know that's been a factor in all of our lives. I think that's what you're trying to do here as you gather more women to the table of philanthropy, to say that we should empower women to think about the power that they can exercise with their giving and the influence and the change agents that they can be at any level. And so, it's just a very important part of everything we do to empower others to see the potential in others. That's the great thing, of course, about being here at MSU, that we get to do that every day.
Absolutely. And I know our speaker at lunch will talk to us more about how do we empower ourselves in the world of philanthropy. So I know we had one more question over here.
Thank you. I'm going to tell you that my name is Walleen Dotson, and I'm going to tell you that I am a professor in sociology. I was a professor in sociology. And I begin there because I didn't go to MSU. I'm not an alum. But I have indeed wished to participate in this whole idea of women in philanthropy because I know the significance of it. At the same time, I would like to raise an issue, a question, and I know you have no control over how things happen all the time. But missing from our conversation, which was dynamic and fantastic, informative and inspiring, was the largest college on the campus, which is social sciences. And that bothers me because I'm a social scientist. It also bothers me because when we omit that particular, and we didn't omit it, it was circumstantial that we had to leave it out. But when it's not present, we don't get an opportunity to hear from such fantastic leadership on what are we doing with regard to the foundational stuff that equals a college education. Does that mean that all of the other things equal nothing? Absolutely not. But the truth of the matter is, if our freshmen don't go through some of those elementary courses in the social sciences and others, if our sophomores don't complete those courses in the social sciences, they have no idea who William Shakespeare was. Sorry. And how William Shakespeare is absolutely at the core of both our language as well as much of our artistic understanding as a nation. Are you following me? So I'm at the big question, and I'm saying we left it out, and that's unfortunate, and I'm hoping we can really pick it up, because I spent part of my time as an academic person in social science and also in the College of Arts and Letters. So I too am a two-college person. But I want to bring it in because it is critical. As a land-grant school, a university based in Michigan, doing the fantastic things that we do, and you can ask anyone who knows me, I'm always talking about MSU, even though I'm not an alum, right? I just don't bleed green. At the same time,
We have a differing opinion here.
but at the same time, I really love this school, and I intend to contribute philanthropically to this university. I have no intentions that you're going to block me or anybody's going to stop me. What I want to do, however, is not on this calendar, is not on this panel. Doesn't matter. I might find something over there that I like too and put something there and help out, because I know my little $10 will help somebody else's 10,000. And if I come to all right, I'm preaching to the choir. But all I wanted to say was, you've laid a strong foundation of why we should be about the giving that we've come here to talk about. But in so doing, we haven't pulled in the largest college and leadership in that college that makes our students' lives capable of going to the next level and going to graduate school and moving into the fields of knowledge production. That's my field. I produce knowledge, and I want us to know we need to bring them in.
If I
Well,
could, I would love to respond. You are so right on. We need the social sciences and the humanities are core to everything we do. A couple things. One, when I started as interim dean, and when I first became interim dean, Dean's Council, which is about 22 deans, there was only one woman permanent dean, sitting dean on that council. You see the women who are here now, and that doesn't include Dean Finn from social science, and it doesn't include Dean Small from nursing. We have come a long way. And so we're getting there, and those people are at the table, and they do have very strong voices. We all are strong voices on Dean's Council. In Lyman Briggs, we are a residential college for STEM. Half of our faculty are from the humanities, the arts, and the social sciences. We are an interdisciplinary college. Our students come to us because they want to do STEM, but what we try to do, and what I think we do pretty successfully, is we teach those sciences within the social and cultural constructs and within those contexts, because the reality is all the environmental and scientific challenges we face, they're actually human challenges, right? And so I completely agree with you, and I would just say that yes, we are somewhat siloed in terms of we have these colleges that are each one, there's a College of Social Science, there's a College of Natural Science, but the reality is that we are a very collaborative institution, and we are working together, and I do believe all the deans see that importance and that value.
Thank you. That's a better response than I would have had. So, but I do think, as you said, it was circumstantial in terms of we have 7 women deans and we have 5 with us today. It's in no means a way to capture everything or the philosophy or underscore something's important and something's not. We have many other colleges that are so foundational. And that's what I appreciate, is that integration that lives and is embodied by, frankly, our interim president. You heard it in what she talked about today and her research and how she presented and how she humanized and took science and overlaid, with the human world and conditions. So I think our institution really embraces that and the importance of that foundational piece. So thank you for the reminder and speaking up about it, because that's important too, so that everybody knows that that's critically important. And I think we have one more question over here.
Hi, I'm Janet Ireland. I currently am on staff in animal science. I did not graduate from MSU, but I do bleed green. But this all these comments and all of the questions that you were asked and answered, really one of those transcending moments. I realized that across colleges, there are many similarities. The deans have many similar goals, and unfortunately, infrastructure at this university is one thing, but to recruit and retain amazing students and amazing faculty across all the disciplines, and I'm going to be very inclusive at the university. When I tell you that my husband and I had previously set up a graduate endowment, and we have started thinking about all these ideas that people are presenting to be more inclusive and to be like Kelly. We want MSU to dominate the world. We think MSU is exactly the university that's positioned to handle what we refer to as One Health issues around the world. And it's basically the health of humans, the health of animals, the health of plants, the health of the soil, the health of the environment and water. If we can't, through our climate and our clean water, the plants we grow, that the animals eat, that we eat, we will not be a healthy environment, and we will not reproduce. My research has been in reproduction, like Teresa's, and we have partnered over the years. I predominantly work in females, but we have included males in our research models when appropriate. But the One Health, we are trying to put this out to the university, and we are working through advancement, ground level right now, but we want people to be aware that there are areas to contribute, whether or not it's graduate fellowships or endowed chairs, or any way possible to get, and I think we all can work well together. We have two medical schools, we have a vet school, we have a fabulous College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, we have a school of nursing, ethics committee, a whole new ethics group, and we can tackle this problem on many levels. And so I just want everybody to possibly investigate, listen to One Health when it comes around. I think that we can tackle these issues on our planet by working together. And I really see that collaboration between the deans and the colleges, and I'm very excited about it. And thank you for all your responses. They've really hit home on what I would like this university to achieve.
Well, thank you for your comments. I think that's a great note to end on, is that working together, you can see the vibrancy of our leadership and the commitment and the collegiality. I think that extends to the rest of the deans and other leadership too. And so thank you and for being here today, and looking forward to conversations as the day progresses. And just thank you to each of you. You have a lot on your plate. And so for you to be here and spend the time and share insights, we just really appreciate your partnership. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.